Welcome to the Band Shop Podcast. I'm kind of soloing it tonight. Also have Benny over there running the stuff behind the scenes. He's also got a mic on himself. So.
And I got a video.
Yeah, this time around. Yeah.
I'm here. I'm living the best life.
We've got Dead at Dawn, or Death at Dawn, my bad.
Oh, God, that's good.
Oh, man.
We love you, Nick.
So, we're going to have you guys run down left to right. You know, tell me who you are, what you play in the band.
Okay. I'm Mesram, and I do lead vocals.
I'm Sight, and I play the guitar.
Of course, I'm Graham. I play bass. Bass.
Beast?
Beast.
The bass.
I played at the Beast.
Slap the bass.
I slept at the Beast.
I slept with the bass, and I do backups.
I'm Borg, and I play the drums.
Alright, so how long ago did you guys start up?
Probably, I'd say about a year and a half ago.
Yep.
June 9th, 2018.
Right on the dot.
Great memory.
Yeah. We've probably had this guy about 6-7 months.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
Yep. We've been spent about a year writing songs, making some music. Then Mesram stepped in, started throwing down some vocals for us, and everything kind of came together after that.
That's awesome. So, I mean, obviously you guys are a theatrically kind of inspired band, which I'm a sucker for in the first place. Was that something that was kind of always there from the beginning, or was that something that you kind of came to as time went on?
Well, I mean, we always wanted to put on a good show, you know? That was always important to us. We wanted to do more than just play music. We wanted to get out there and entertain people. But I think that, you know, dressing up, having a theme, wearing masks and things like that, it all kind of came as we kicked around more ideas. And
you never know which one of us is going to talk, because the three of us gotta...
I'm just going to raise my hand when I'm talking.
Well, speaking of themes, like you were, I kind of noticed there were some like lyrical themes kind of going through it. So, I mean, is that something that's intentional, like that you're having like a through line theme through all the songs, or is it just kind of something that's just happenstance? Like,
It seems like each song is kind of its own story.
Yeah. Each song's a story, but they're all basically based around death and deception, and just kind of done in various forms there. And I think the main point is, doesn't really matter what you do with your life. At some point, it's going to end. So we kind of like to see it as the Reaper coming to take your soul, and that's how it ends.
Because remember, it's always darkest right before the dawn.
Oh.
Oh, wait, no. Death at dawn.
We like to have fun, people.
that seriously is going to be something I have a feeling is going to follow you guys forever. Dead at Dawn, Death at Dawn thing is going to follow you for a while.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
I like them both.
You're going to need to, like, what you need to do is, and I'm going to copyright this so Nick, you can't take it. Fuck you. I love you anyways. But you need to get a picture of Maxon on the front, and he's all like, you know, and then you got like the hangman's noose behind him.
Yeah.
And then put, you know, Dead at Dawn.
Oh, God. Hey, check out my new shirt. It's the Death at Dawn shirt. No, this is Dead at Dawn. No. What? Wait. What band am I? What band am I listening to again?
We should just put out some Dead at Dawn merch just to screw with
You
people's
should.
heads.
You really should.
Just fuck with everybody. Who cares? They'll figure out who we are.
Yeah. If they don't, they gotta put the special glasses on so they can see our shirt for what it really is.
Yeah, it'll say Dead at Dawn, but with the glasses, it'll say Death at Dawn the right way.
Like the old school, like
Yeah.
like 3D or like invisible
Right.
glasses, like when we were
Yeah.
kids with those like comic books that would have like hidden messages and stuff.
Oh, I was actually thinking Roddy Piper. In,
What's that movie called?
what's his name? Death at Dawn.
No.
Dead at Dawn.
It's Dead at Dawn, yeah.
Oh.
Oh my god. So, I mean, aside from, you know, I mean, obviously, I could probably guess as to some of the influences from you guys, but, like, were there specific bands that were really kind of, like, really influential on this? Or was it really just kind of like you all kind of came in with your own individual styles and then kind of just made it work? Or was there anything, or was there ever, like, any discussion of, like, hey, this is kind of basically, is it more of like an organized vision from the start, or was it just literally just kind of came as it did?
Well, honestly, for me, is like I've always been a big Kiss fan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, watching them put on shows, the fire and the suits and the makeup and the platform boots, and just watching everybody. Who's that guy behind the mask? What's he really look like? Mm-hmm. That really had a lot of pull on me, musically wise, and.
Well, there's an air of mystery about it.
Yeah, there's this mystery about it. It's like, what do I really look like? You know, who's gonna know? You have to fucking.
I might know.
You might know, but yeah, it was like a lot of Kiss, and then like a little bit of Gwar, and then I mean, like I saw Slipknot with all their different masks and everything. I was like, that's something I really wanted to do, so I like created this character. I would say about 7 years ago, and I never really found people that shared like the same vision of, hey, let's put a visual on, let's not just stand there with our guitars on, you know, let's give people something to look at, just like, you know, Kiss did back in the 70s, or like the hair bands of the 80s, you know, they did the visuals, the big poofy hair, the wearing the makeup, the wearing the obscure clothing, you know, stuff that you're not gonna see on a daily basis. And it really gets you to question, is like, man, I wonder what they really look like. You know, I wonder what their personalities
Most of the
like.
time, we found out, it was not what people hoped.
Right.
Yeah.
I think musically though, early on, the three of us realized we shared a common influence by Mudvayne.
Oh yeah.
So I think musically that's kind of at our core, that type of band where we're all kind of bringing our own thing musically.
Although I do feel like I need to say that I was never really into the whole mask idea, and I never liked Kiss or anything like that. I always liked the bands that were straightforward and just who were, you know, themselves. But as time grew on, I just happened to notice that I kind of enjoyed live shows that were more of a theme or a setting or characters versus just people just playing music. It just adds to it. I like watching just people playing music, but I like to nowadays I like to see a show.
Well, and I've always said that as far as going to shows is like, in a lot of the bands that I've been in, even is like, when people go to see a band, you know, if they wanted to listen to the shit, they could just nowadays go onto Spotify or whatever and just listen to it, you know, but you go to a show to see a show. So you want to give them something that made it worth them spending the money and the time to come out and actually see you. Now, I mean, of course, with a lot of the bands I've been in, it hasn't necessarily been a theatrical bent like that, but I mean, we used to do, you know, crazy shit, throwing guitars and jumping around on stage and diving out into crowds, you know, doing things that would get people's attention and be like, because I always had this feeling of, you want people to come away from the show like remembering you because you did something that stood out from everybody else. And you could say that like even about some bands. What was the one many years ago? Was it like Shat or something like that? That was from like the indie area. They used to like come out with like dildos on their fucking helmets and stuff, like just crazy. And but it was stuff that would make you like, you would remember. Yeah. Like, it was completely fucking crazy, but that's why you remembered it. Like, the music might not have been like the greatest, but you remembered the band.
Yeah,
like,
of course
it's the important part.
So, I mean, that kind of helps too, having a theatrical bent to it. Like, although, I mean, I imagine you guys probably run into a little bit too, you know, some of the skepticism from some people that's like, oh yeah, you know, you're copying other bands, other people do this kind of stuff too, whatever. It's like, who the fuck cares? Like, we're doing our own thing of it, you know?
Well, for me, I'm a bass player, and I listened to these guys, and I thought their riffs were really good, and I was hooked on it. And to be honest, if it wasn't a masked situation, I wouldn't be doing the vocals. It's just so much more comfortable, you know, and I feel like it unites us all too when we're up there playing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Larry's real good at writing lyrics too.
Yeah. Plus,
Thanks,
when you
guys.
look at us, you know, we're not all dressed similar. We're all
you guys all have your
an
own
individual personality.
Yeah. That is definitely for sure.
That's because we didn't come up with a plan of, hey, we should look like this. It was just we all I came one day, hey, check out this mask. I painted this. I'm gonna wear this now, and
Nice.
it doesn't look anything like their mask, but it doesn't matter. It's just we all kind of do our own thing, and what you see is what you get.
Well, and I think, I mean, in a sense, it's a good artistic expression too.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the music that's an expression of your art. Your visuals also can be an expression of your art.
But I don't know about you. You being a drummer, you know that you sweat profusely. You know, if he was wearing white face paint, he'd have that shit in his eyes.
Oh, it'd be running.
And he
all over
wouldn't
the place.
go on to pick.
I can only go so far with this, you know.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
there may or may not have been a time when I've worn makeup and masks and shit back in the day in some bands in high school and stuff, but like, and I can tell you, it gets, especially like, you know, it's a good thing you didn't go with like a full head mask of some kind because you would be floating in there.
See, the thing that really helps me is waterproof eyeliner.
You know, and the thing is, I really like the way I look when I'm wearing this stuff, when I'm playing the drums, when I watch myself playing the drums. That's what I want to see. You know?
Yeah.
I'm kind of becoming what I want to see when I watch someone play drums.
Yeah.
See, like when we played the Doom Room this past Saturday, and we had the people come and approach Borg, and they were like, "Hey, you know that drummer from Death at Dawn, you know, where's that guy?" He's like, "I'm the drummer." And I was like, "What?"
You outed yourself on that one. Like you could have just been like, I don't know that guy. What? I don't know. I think he slipped out the back.
He was like, "Hey, were you?" I was wearing a shirt of Inephrins, and he was like, "Hey, were you at that show?" I was like, "Yeah, I played that show. I was the drummer of Death at Dawn." He goes, "Oh, really?" He goes, "Wow, you totally different." I'm like, "Well, that's how it goes, you know."
Yeah.
I'm doing something
I remember
else.
reading stories back in the day of Slipknot, like in their early years, like before they started becoming more and more unmasked
Yeah.
as time went. But like in the early days, like self-titled era, pre-self-titled and self-titled area, where they would go out and they would do their shows, and then they would go back into the audience after they were done performing, just as themselves. Mm-hmm. You know, because they were mostly opening, and nobody knew who they were, but they could get honest responses from the audience as to what people thought of them. Because these people didn't realize that they were talking to the guys from the band.
That's awesome.
And there was an infamous story of many years ago, they played in Cleveland, which of course, as some people in the loving of theatrical bands knows, that's where Mushroomhead's from. And there's been this kind of feud between the two bands for many years, which actually, between the bands themselves, there's never been a feud. It's been between the fans.
Right.
Yeah.
And apparently at one point they played a show in Cleveland and some of their fans got shitty and were like throwing like master lock locks at their heads and shit while they were playing. And they were like, we may or may not have returned back into the crowd unmasked later and, you know, seeked out our revenge. I was like, I fucking would have checked those motherfuckers into a wall during a mosh pit or something, you know?
For real.
Wouldn't even see it coming.
You throw a master lock at my head, motherfucker.
Wow. It's crazy.
Damn.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how the hell they get in with so many goddamn locks.
Well, this was in like the late 90s. You know, it's not like today. Like, I mean, we've had these discussions on this podcast before about how the music scene's changed in general and venues have changed and things. I mean, you used to be able to go into venues with fucking pocket knives and shit, you know, at one point. Like, you can't get in there with any... Like, you can't even go in with a fucking Gatorade bottle anymore. Like, every place checks for everything. You
can't bring that yellow lemon Gatorade in there. Ha! Joke's on you, it's urine.
Now, the bands can sometimes get away with that stuff because they bring it in through backstage, you know, and they're, you know, because they don't care.
No, I have been to a couple places recently where they didn't really check at all.
That's surprising.
And I was like, I could have brought anything.
That's
We were there.
Yeah. I always bring my trusty Destroyer flask and my Beetlejuice flask. And I got in there with both of them.
They didn't even pat down or nothing. I was like, is this safe? Chicago, downtown Chicago, you know, little club.
Well, you should have thought about that before we took all the drugs to come see that concert. Oh, God, we're going to die tonight, aren't we? Oh, that's Chicago for you.
Oh yeah. I've been to several shows in the Chicago area, and right in downtown even. Yeah,
I don't know about you, but like back like right when I got out of high school, probably the safest that I've ever felt at a Chicago venue was an ICP concert.
I would
shit you
believe
not.
that, honestly, because they all stick together. Like,
Yeah, I mean, like it was crazy. It was crazy. It's like you hear fucking gunshots in the background, and you're like, you fall in the mosh pit, and everybody stops to pick you up, and you all right, dust you off, and be like, hey, here's a drink, you know. Pick yourself up, take a breather, and come right back in. And you're just like, yeah, okay.
and we were like, our guest last week when we were talking to him, we kind of got into the discussion about that, about how it changed, like how there used to be, you know, there was just these unspoken rules that everybody knew about going to shows, like metal shows or hardcore shows or whatever, punk shows, where it was like, you knew there were mosh pits, you knew where to stay away from them if you didn't want to get sucked into them, and if you did end up in them, if you got knocked down, people were right there to pick you up. Like, it wasn't like, and I feel like there came a time, especially around here, I feel, and yet again, I'm repeating myself as I have on other podcasts, but like, you know, a lot of that stuff changed here when a few incidences happened at some venues here, one of them being a shooting in a venue.
Oh god.
And it took down the whole scene. Like, if you weren't a band that was already established in some way, like, and could bring in a medium-sized, people into like a medium-sized venue, like, you know, the Lafayette Theater downtown or something like that, all the venues that were smaller than that shut down. Because it felt like the city just put this massive stranglehold on all of them, and we're just like, and what was crazy about it was that a lot of the bands and artists that suffered from it had nothing to do with what had happened at that venue. And I mean,
Wasn't that Really Brothers?
well, it happened at
old
Reilly's,
Reilly Brothers.
it happened at Reilly's, and it happened at Nick's. Nick's was the big one where the dude came
Yeah.
in with a 9 and started firing into the audience and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, this is not being discriminatory at all, but it was at a hip-hop show.
Yeah.
And it was an artist from Chicago, and the shootings were from people from Chicago. It had nothing to do with people here, had nothing to do with the scene here. Somebody from Chicago came down here to try to settle some kind of a beef with somebody that they knew was going to be there,
Yeah.
came into the audience with the gun, started firing. And that closed that venue immediately.
Oh, yeah.
It never came back. And it was a venue that had been here for 30-some years.
That's sad.
You know, and just immediately killed it. And luckily, as far as I remember, I don't think there were any fatalities from the shooting, but there were some people hit. But yeah, and it just it killed everything here. Like, all these small venues died because, you know, none of them could afford the insurance that they had to have now, because now there's a reputation in the city of there being violence at these shows, even though, you know, it was never the punk shows, it was never the metal shows, it was never, you know, the hardcore shows, it was none of that. I mean, the only times, honestly, that there were ever any issues were at, like, these, like, gangster rap hip-hop shows. Which, I mean, I listen to some of that shit, too, so it has nothing to do with
The music.
It has nothing to do with the music at all.
It's nothing to do with stupid people.
Yeah, and it's like, it seemed like to me, like, the people that we had in this community weren't doing that kind of stuff. I mean, upon occasion, you have some, you know, punk-ass kid who tried to start some shit in a mosh pit or whatever. But usually they were handled swiftly
Yeah.
and taken out, and they were done. You know, and that was it. But it was rare. And,
You
know,
don't see that shit at a Jackal show.
no, it's and that's the thing that drives me nuts is, like, you get these venues now that's like the only time that you get bands coming in now are if they are already signed or known bands, or they're cover bands,
Yeah.
or, you know,
They're
country
one-
bands.
They're one of the wash-up bands from like the early 2000s. So
Or
it's
even
like, hey,
earlier.
we're making a comeback. We're gonna come to all the little cities like
Puddle of mud. Puddle of mud.
Adema.
Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's why, like, when we came up with the idea of doing this podcast, we wanted to give all of our friends and bands in this area that we knew some way to have a wider reach, because there was just nothing here anymore. Like, and I've said it on several other podcasts, we've talked about it before, but, like, there's a lot of really, really talented musicians in this surrounding area.
Yeah.
I've met some
Very.
just crazy good people, like, that blow me and other people that I know, like, completely out of the water with their talents and abilities. But they don't go anywhere with it. They're stuck here. Like it doesn't go anywhere. And so it was like, especially now that we don't have the venues anymore, it's like we wanted to do something, give bands like you a chance to, we had a space and some equipment and stuff to be able to do this.
Yeah.
To give you guys a platform. To be
we
able to get
appreciate
your stuff
that.
out there. And like
Absolutely do.
And we want anybody on here. It doesn't matter if you're, an independent, acoustic artist or a country artist, a hip hop artist, like it doesn't matter what it is. Like we want to showcase these independent underground people here and give everybody a chance.
I gotta get my buddy Willie over here.
Yeah. I got a hip hop artist. His name's Trayshawn Johnson. I mean,
Hell yeah.
he's a great singer and he's got his own stuff. And I'm pretty sure he'd love to come on the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, you can have him get a hold of us, like, because we're always down.
Definitely.
Like for doing that kind of stuff. So you guys have obviously. I mean, this podcast will be dropping in November, mid to late November.
Yeah.
By the time that most of these people are watching it and seeing it now. But do you have anything around that time scheduled, or any plans of anything coming up?
Right now we got the Dark Harvest Festival coming up, November 16th?
Mm-hmm.
that's
in Muncie.
In Muncie.
In Muncie. I know Saturday we got offered to do a house party this Saturday. But
House parties are always so much fun.
Yeah, but the only thing that we got set in stone is the Dark Harvest Festival in Muncie for November 16th.
Before this.
Yeah, that'll probably. Well, it might end up being the week that this comes out, possibly, or.
So I mean, if we don't get any other shows scheduled, I think we might actually like buckle down and like start thinking about getting into the studio and getting our EP or the full thing out.
How many songs do you guys have so far?
Well, we got like 8 or 9 songs.
Yeah, we got about 8 or
So
9.
you guys are already well on your way to a full length at this
Right,
point.
yeah, we got to write a few more. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
We need to start writing some more stuff, but
Yeah, when we played the Twisted Hammer, we had a lot of people like yell at us, "Play some Slipknot, play some Slipknot." Because the new album came out, so hopefully at the Dark Harvest we'll be debuting our cover of a Slipknot song.
yeah, we've been working on that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we're not gonna tell you what it is. 'Cause
Yeah,
you
it's
gotta-
secret.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
You gotta find out for yourself. So I
gonna
will
suffer
say
in
this.
silence.
It's off of one of the top 3 earlier Slipknot albums. No new stuff.
Ooh, I think I.
This is
Yeah, but how
slightly
good
older
are you
song.
talking, though?
We're not giving any more info. No more questions.
Nope.
Let's change the
That's not
subject.
It's not on Iowa.
It was during the Paul era.
Oh, so
So
anything
before-
pre Gray Chapter.
Yeah.
Right.
So
It's
that's
pre-Great Chapter.
acceptable to me.
Yeah.
'Cause anything
Yeah.
After that, it's just.
Oh, I don't know. I actually liked the most recent two. I mean,
Yeah, I did too.
They are. I actually feel like the newest one was better than Point Five.
Yeah.
Oh, for
And I
sure.
liked Point Five.
Me too.
But I felt like this new one was like really like shining for them. Like it's still not, to me. Of course, I'm old school. Like I got into them when Self-Titled came out in '99. So
Yeah.
like,
I think
Same.
we all did.
so
I
Self-Titled in
didn't.
Iowa,
I
of
didn't.
course.
I was a late bloomer.
Like,
Oh, were you? Okay.
To me, like, and a lot of those early fans, like, I personally take that Self-Titled album completely out of the mix. I don't even consider it part of the rest of the discography. It sits on its own and cannot be touched because nothing came like it before or after.
Right.
So, like, even from them, they could never duplicate it. So if you take that out of the mix, I still put Iowa as number 1. Like, but, I mean, this new one is in the top 3 for me. It's funny because my first listen through, I actually did this was before we were doing the podcast, so I didn't have we're going to be doing some more like album reviews and things on here eventually.
Yeah.
But I didn't have this platform at that time when it came out to do my album review in that sense, so I kind of wrote, a written form of kind of a breakdown of the overall album, and then I went track by track and kind of wrote out my feelings on each track, like the day. I actually had an early release. I'd managed to get my hands on an early release, so for review purposes for that, and had, like the week leading up to it, it was kind of giving my opinions on some of this stuff, and then when the day it dropped, I really was like, this is what I think. But to me, they were all talking about how it was like, there were these hints of like, there's like Iowa levels of heaviness, and there are some moments that are definitely like Iowa levels of heaviness. But I felt like it honestly reminded me more of the creative feel of like Volume 3.
Yeah.
Like not necessarily the same tone,
Right.
but I felt like Volume 3 was like their most creative,
Yeah,
like where they
definitely.
were just experimenting with weird things and like doing these interludes, and especially if you got like the bonus version of the album that had the bonus tracks that they didn't release on the original release of it. It had like all these like, there was one it was like a 10-minute like kind of weird trippy interlude kind of song that was on there, and I
Yeah.
felt like there were moments on this new one that really reminded me of that.
Yeah.
The
like
new
the-
one, some that stand out is Critical Darling.
Oh, Critical Darling's the
Yeah, it's
shit.
great.
That's a
It's
good
song.
one.
Oh yeah.
And the Liar one.
Mm-hmm.
What's it called?
Fuck. I don't have my phone on me. I could look it up.
I can't
I
remember.
know exactly what it is. I can't think of it right now. Oh. I know what one you're talking about.
Right.
But yeah, there's honestly what's funny is the as I guess is kind of usual, the songs they usually pick for singles for albums tend to not be the best
Oh
ones.
yeah, no.
And I felt like the singles they dropped compared to Point 5, I actually felt
True.
like the ones they dropped for Point 5 were in some ways better than the rest of the album. Like, whereas this time around, I felt like they kind of did the typical, like, let's release the more middle of the road, like radio friendly type ones that are going to catch attention.
Although I thought that one was Soul Way Firth. They released that one radio. That's a good heavy
Yeah.
one though.
But
That's legit.
But they fucking released Custer from the last album as a single, which I remember Corey talking about that, saying like when they came to him and were like, "We'd like to make this a single." He was like, "Are you fucking crazy?" This song, the chorus of the song says, "Cut you up, fuck you up." You're gonna put that on the radio?
It sounds terrible. It sounds like a fucking
It is
hack
catchy,
job on the
though.
And
radio.
it's like,
it is catchy.
But I mean, and what's funny is anytime that any radio station does an edited version of anything, it always makes it way more obvious than if they had just left it.
Yeah.
I never heard it on the radio or an edited
mean-
version.
I mean, a great example of that is fucking Disturbed.
Oh,
Sure.
like the original, like Down with the Sickness, where they cut that whole
where they
rant
cut
out.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mom rant. Was
Yeah.
like, Jesus Christ, that's a big portion of the song.
Sometimes they
a
will
good
play
40
it.
to 50 seconds of the song.
Yeah. But yet they'll let, like Alice in Chains slip by with shit.
Yeah.
And for years, nobody even noticed.
Or Bush's Everything Zen with My Asshole Brother.
Yeah, exactly. And they,
Or Man in a Box.
or for years, with Korn and Freak on a Leash, there was the line in the chorus of that they let go, and nobody realized the line is "a cheap fuck for me to lay." And that was left on the radio for many years before people figured out that that's what he was saying, because they never printed their lyrics in their album liners. So, like,
I mean, do
Yeah.
I need to bring up Nirvana?
oh yeah, they
Rave me.
Oh, I mean, they
Rave
did.
me, my friend. I mean, God, I remember being a kid listening to that on the radio, and I'm just like, what's rape, Mom? you don't need to worry about that right now. Just
What's
listen to the
rape,
song
Mom?
and
My mom actually heard that song and didn't like it at first. And then one day she came to me and she was like, you know what, I actually sat and listened to that song and I understand it now. I was like, wow, Mom.
supposedly I heard a rumor, and I haven't
it's a
ever
crap,
really been
dude.
able to clarify this for sure, but I had heard that Rape Me was actually like a continuation of the song from the song Polly, which was on Nevermind.
yeah.
And so it was because the song Polly, of course, is about, like kidnapping and, like chaining, restraining her and all that kind of stuff. And then Rape Me was basically her side of it. And that's what I heard, was that was a theory. I don't know how true that is. I mean, we'll never really officially know. But
Interesting.
So, have I ever told you my Kurt Cobain joke?
I don't know.
How did the cops know what kind of shampoo Kurt Cobain used?
Because it was head and shoulders above the rest.
Yeah, because they found his head and shoulders behind the couch.
I was going to say it was probably something like that. Oh, that's awful.
So Kurt had bad dandruff, huh?
Well, I do got a funny dad joke for you.
Oh, you got a
It's
dad joke?
Yeah, I got a dad joke for you. So, why doesn't a chicken wear pants?
I don't know.
Because his cock is on his head.
You make me laugh, Andrew.
That was Tucker.
You're gonna need to cut that out.
Tell the joke right, man.
That's what the bleep button's for, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
talking about censorship.
I'm sorry. Every time you hit that fucking thing, I can hear it through the fucking headphones.
Oh, and you bumping on the mic?
Oh no, I just mean shutting it.
No, I'm talking about his vape.
Oh, when he hits his vape?
Every time he hits his vape,
Well,
yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Sweet,
I'm gonna have to
sweet
be
butter lung.
Cutting that shit out in post. Because the whole time it's just gonna be.
no, okay, so I turned my mic off, hitting it, but it's just going through the room mics. So I mean, I apologize for said things. Gotta get
Well,
the nicotine on.
What about, what about you? What do you
man.
do you have any questions for these fine gentlemen?
No, I don't do windows, and if you drop your pants, I'll just laugh.
Are you sure?
All right, $50 and he's all on.
Yes.
I was gonna say.
Yes, because if I was gay, I could do a lot better.
It was like
I'd say
$5
$30.
last time. I mean, you must be a hell of a lot.
Does
better.
anyone want to?
Hey, I'm making more than minimum wage now.
That's all that matters, right?
I get Pez and Lifesavers. I don't need your charity.
Hey, does anyone want to explain our new theme we're going on for our new direction with the Four Horsemen?
Oh, you guys got
Oh shit!
like for the album and stuff, like
Who,
what you're working on.
who
for the
can
album?
explain that one the best? You think?
It was only an idea kicked around, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it was an idea. Basically, we were gonna release a couple singles, like maybe 4 songs, and then like the actual album was going to be basically we're the Four Horsemen.
Mhm.
You know, each one of us is one of the plague. All the others, death, pestilence, all that other good stuff. But we wanted to go with a theme of that because we're still writing songs for the full length, and pretty much we're gonna poison everybody's minds with the next songs that come out.
Nice.
I mean, now you listen to the songs and you read the lyrics. It's just like it has a lot of supernatural attributes to it. Like one's a haunted house, one has a perspective through the eyes of the ghost, not through the person. You get to feel how the ghost feels. I mean, we dive into people's own madness when you suffer in silence. If you care to stop the violence, don't just sit there and suffer in silence. That's what we're trying to do. We got some positive, so it's not just all death, disease, destruction, and torture.
We got one about a bad camping trip, right?
Oh yeah,
Where you become the 7th severed head.
correct. It's a good one.
It's fucking brutal.
Yeah.
It's so brutal. I just envisioned somebody opening up that black book that you're not supposed to open down there in the basement. You just crack the gates of hell wide the fuck open.
Oh man.
Would that be such a bad thing?
I mean,
Yeah.
you go looking for a haunted house. Sometimes you shouldn't go into the basement.
Yeah.
Never go in the basement.
I mean, I'd rather get in a van that says free candy and spray paint than go in the basement of a haunted house.
Well,
That's because you own that van.
yeah, you are the creepy guy.
The molestomobile. Very fitting for you.
Hey, my dad's side of the family is Catholic.
Oh.
Went there.
Whole different level.
Yikes.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
And
Not
I
hard
enjoyed.
enough, but I have sinned.
I enjoyed every second of it.
Nothing wrong with that.
Should I have my pants down when I confess, or is that just a me thing?
You're too old, Andy.
Maybe not. If you go by age difference, it's like an 80-year-old priest, and he might still fit in that. That's what, 50 years.
I mean, if I do wear a robe and walk on my knees, and shave. I can do pretty good theatrical makeup.
Oh man.
So,
No, Father, don't!
the writing process, who starts that?
We've gone a few different routes. So several of the songs I've written, the riffs that I wrote, and we kind of work about and kind of rework them. And because once I start playing some riffs, Grim may have some ideas, or Borg may have some ideas, and we kind of change some things around. So it's cool that if I bring riffs, or if Grim brings riffs, we're always open to ideas and changing things and making things cooler. And we always end up with a better product than what we initially intended to bring. But yeah, once we have the riffs down and Borg starts putting some drum beats to them, then once it's sounding pretty good, then Mesram steps in and goes home and listens to it and comes up with some vocals for it.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much the songs that I've had. It's the same thing. We've always had a better product when we've all sat down and worked with it. Hey, let's change this a little bit. I would say that there is one song, "Suffer in Silence," that we actually wrote on the
together.
spot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's the one the two of us really wrote together, and I think I came up with 2 riffs and you came up with 2 riffs, and we were like, oh, we got a song now, and it's really turned out to be a pretty good song too.
Yeah, it's very punctual. Very punctual.
Yeah.
There we go. Turn you back on so you're not black.
Yeah, somebody wasn't paying attention and doing their job.
I'm doing my job, just multitasking, which apparently I'm not too good at no more.
Don't tell me the cap was on the entire time.
No, it wasn't the cap.
No.
I just, after so long, that DSLR camera shuts off, so.
Oh, yeah, after a half hour.
Yeah, 20 minutes.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. So I was just not paying attention. But, no, I feel like the writing singular is more common, but like the jam sessions, I just didn't know if that's how you wrote or not. So it's...
Yeah, we've wrote the one song with the jam session, and we've had a couple other riffs that are promising for other songs. I saved one of the riffs that we wrote, and that is very promising for our new songs. It is easy, but some of the simplest songs have been some of the best songs ever written.
It's funny because we were just talking about that last week with the guests that we had on, about how it's like, a lot of the most famous songs in the world are no more than 4 chords.
Oh, for sure. Look at AC/DC.
Yeah, or even Nirvana, like we were talking about earlier. Smells Like Teen Spirit is 4 chords for the whole song.
I don't think that's.
I think it's popular like that because everyone can understand it.
Well, yeah, it's more catchy.
Well, yeah,
and
and depending on like what key it is in too, you can kind of take like certain chord progressions and make it sound similar to something else, but it not be that. And it kind of it draws people in because they hear something that is familiar, even though it's different. And you're putting a different feel on it. I mean, if you think about it, you only have 12 frets on a guitar, and then it just starts the same variation over again. So it's kind of like it is what it is. So I feel like that's that. Now, do you guys prefer, like, the one song that you did as a jam and is now a song, did you prefer doing it like that, or did you prefer doing it like the single, like him writing a riff and then you writing a riff, like, which one do you prefer?
Or is it just one of those things that just kind of whatever happens.
Yeah, it's kind of...
Right.
Actually, the way I remember it happening is he had the initial riff, and then I wrote a second riff, and then he wrote another one, and then I wrote another
It's
one.
kind of a back and forth thing.
I've been there before.
And we just back and forth at that point, and then we're like, all right, let's throw it together, and let's throw some opens in there for chugging, and add a little. We'll have a pause where you do something, and then the next pause you do something, and the next pause I'll do something to kind of mix it up. So we're just not like chugging on the open chords. Make it sound like, we had a plan, because we did have a plan. It's just, the formula was there. Get the basics down, and then later, once we get the basics down, we can add our little parts in there to make it a little bit more different than some of the bands that are out there that do repetitive shit, just like a chug 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 chug. Everybody can get down, but we're gonna chug chug chug, do something different this part, do something different this part, and if you listen to the album, you're gonna be like listening, oh, there's something different every time they have a pause within that 4 count.
But you gotta have that chug 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 too.
Yeah, you definitely gotta have that chug.
You gotta have that chug in there for the fucking kids to throw down.
Well, the thing is, I've seen a couple bands that have like 7 strings, and they never do the chugging stuff. But it's good. But
I was gonna say that could be. Are you talking like really proggy style bands where they're like?
Yeah, I mean they'll do like a little bit. But man, you gotta have that. If you're using the 7 string, you gotta have that groove in there.
Well, it's like I was actually listening to. There was another podcast. I'm not gonna name it, but that I was listening to because I'm not gonna give them free promotion. That they were actually talking about Korn's debut album, and they were talking about like the early days of Korn, like before they got signed and all of that stuff, and like they were. To me, they were like the first band that I really remember sticking out having 7-string guitars.
Yeah, me too.
Whereas, like, But they were talking about how it's like, of course, like Steve Vai.
Yes, I vape again.
But Steve
Vai had been doing it beforehand using a 7-string, but he was not using it in that way.
He
was
it like a normal guitar.
Yeah, he was using it as just, to have more range with what he was doing in his soloing and stuff. And they were the first band to really kind of, well, I can't say first necessarily, but they were the first one that became something and everybody knew for, doing the low drop tune to A chugga chugga stuff with a 7-string guitar. And that was part of what created that whole massive overtaking nu metal sound that happened in the mid 90s to the late 90s. It was just like, it started with that. And I remember just being like, how the hell? And what was funny was that the guy who was like my best friend growing up, who like we learned to play instruments and stuff together, and like my first bands were with him and stuff. Like I remember us joking back, and this would have been probably 98, 99, probably somewhere in there. We were just teenagers, and I remember us joking about how it's like, because A was like, oh, A, everybody's in A, that's so low. Like, what are they gonna do next? They're gonna go to go to G, or they're gonna, and there's gonna be playing with bass guitars, and then like little did we know that like 10 years later, you're gonna have these bands like Meshuggah and all these other playing with 8-string guitars, dropping super low, and then it's like we thought we were saying it as a joke then, but like it actually became a thing. Like
I love the sound of those low tune chugging grooves.
But back then, the equipment that was around then couldn't really handle that. Whereas like I feel like now, because that became a thing, because it became a genre, like a legit genre for a while, and people started like, drop tuning lower and lower, they started creating more and more equipment that was built to handle exactly that. So, now you hear it more prevalent because they've created things that make it easier to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can hit the brown note now.
I think you approach 7-string a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like I bought a 7-string off a guy because he didn't know how to play it because he couldn't play Metallica on it.
Oh god!
I
you still
kind of
can.
looked at him. He said, "I'll sell it to you for
You still
$70.
can.
I can't even play it."
$70. What was it? What
It
kind
was
of?
a nice Schecter sound gear. It's the one he's got right over here.
Oh
You
man!
got that for $70?
I got that for $70 because
Damn.
he couldn't play Metallica on it.
I'm gonna smash that thing on stage. You'll only be out $70.
I agree.
That'd be fucking awesome.
Yeah, it would.
See, that's too typical. Everybody
Well,
smashes it. You gotta
it
let it
would-
on fire.
It would give him a
I'll just
reason
take
to
a
bust
shit
out
on
his.
No one will
See,
expect that.
it'd give him a
You
reason
beat
to
your
bust
shit
out
on
his
his guitar?
pre-signed guitar, though.
So you take a shit on it and you smear it in there and then you sign in
Right.
your own shit.
Right.
Oh wow.
Hey, it's better than peeing it out in snow. At least it'd be there for a lot longer.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of, not near as gross, but Gary Holt that plays with Slayer while going away or whatever.
Yeah.
He has that guitar where they actually took vials of his blood.
Yeah.
Clear coated and stuff. It's a pretty cool guitar.
Yeah,
Nice.
well, I mean, then even like Joey Jordison did that back in the day with his signature sticks that he had. He put it in his in the like where the signature. I'm pretty sure it was the signature itself that's on it had like the red paint for his signature had his blood mixed with it.
Nice.
I do want to point out that
Yes, we know it all goes back to
that-
Kiss. We know.
No.
We know.
Yeah,
I saw that fucking look. I saw that
Yeah,
fucking look,
yeah,
and I
you
knew
know,
exactly what you were
I was
thinking.
gonna
All
say,
goes back to Dead at
nobody
Dawn.
is as cool as Kiss who put their blood in a fucking Marvel comic book.
Oh, here we go.
That's all I'm gonna
Let's
say.
just sit back
Go
and let
ahead,
Grim
Borg.
go off on Kiss for the next hour.
No,
I actually
no,
wasn't paying attention. It was changing the subject.
no. If you want to do that, we'll get me and Kevin Cox on here and we'll talk for like 3 to 4 hours.
Oh
on
god, that's the last
no.
thing we need. Go start your own podcast.
Well, everybody, we're gonna take over this podcast and we're gonna talk about Kiss for the
No,
next
we're
3
not.
hours.
No, what I was gonna say was just pointing out that me and Grim here have been jamming off and on for about how many years now?
God, 17 years.
17 years now, off and on.
See, I've known Grim for a long time too, and have may or may not have worked with him at some point in some capacity.
Adrian.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And over the years with a few different things actually.
Yeah.
Like you've even helped me with stuff outside of the official band we were in together.
Yeah.
And I knew Larry. We jammed a little bit before this band, and I never met Tim before Skies, before Grim.
See, before
I didn't know anybody.
Yeah, before we came there, we were playing in a band called Cut 'Em Down with Kevin Cox and another one of our friends, but he was like towards the end, he wasn't there very often, but we had this band going, and it just didn't seem to work out. So after that dissolved, I asked him if he was interested in going to, maybe find another drummer and a singer to play with, and he's like, yeah. And then took him over to Borg's house, and we stuck with it for like 2 months trying to learn the material together, and it started coming together better and better. And I know Larry came to listen to us. He's like, you guys sound badass. And we had the singer from Cut It Down coming over, but he only came like 3 times, and he was really good. But
You just had other stuff going on,
music
command.
was not a priority for him. It was more, girls and going to the gym. So we were like, hey, we need somebody that's going to show up once a week and try to do this.
That's the thing, is
And
you can't even do just like once a week.
yeah, it's hard to, but
It's hard to be committed.
We've been pretty
He's
consistent.
a good guy, but
and then Borg was like, hey, Larry wants to come in and try out for the band. And we were like, hey, come on in. And Larry actually came prepared and like wrote some material to one
yeah,
of our songs.
I was really impressed by that. Like, wow, he already wrote lyrics for it. Okay.
Yeah, come back. And on the 4th practice, we were like, hey, yeah, you're in, man. Let's keep it
I
going.
remember seeing some of the early videos that like you were posting like on social media, like in your personal account and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing some of those, and like when he came in, I was like, oh, I think you guys have found it. I think you guys have found your sound. Like
Yeah.
you've got something now that kind of has its own sounds. Like it's reminiscent of several bands, and you could definitely hear influences, but it still has its own sounds. Like we were talking earlier, even about like with recording the music part of it, and like obviously from my production background on audio engineering and stuff, like I loved the fact that you down-tuned your snare to a lower tune, so it gives the whole thing an even heavier sound. Like, because everything's already drop-tuned as it is, and then to even drop-tune the snare down makes it just have this overall kind of low, heavy tone to the whole thing. And I feel like your vocals work perfectly right over top of it. Like, and it doesn't distract, it doesn't, it fits right in there with that tone.
And this is his first band. This is
Really?
his first metal band.
That's crazy. Like,
Well,
So
as
he's never been a
right?
front man
Yeah,
for any other
it's-
band. So
No.
did you ever do vocals for any other bands or anything that you were in?
Just when I was in high school, I would jam with friends and have that gnarly scream and just feel cool about it.
Yeah.
But I never really took it serious. But one thing about these guys that they probably don't or didn't know is the night I went over there to watch these guys jam, I believe their other vocalist may have been there, and I heard him. He was really good. But they're going through the set, and I didn't hear him sing much. And I was just kind of chilling, and I actually wrote part of It's Time He Takes Your Life. And the whole time I was sitting there going, man, if I had the opportunity, I think I could at least do this part,
Yeah.
And I just, for some reason, I took it with me. And then when I was talking to Borg again, he's like, yeah, no one's really coming. Do you want to try? Because I, kind of said something to him about it. So, I already had part of it written down. So when
Just
he kind
ignored
of...
the dude with the big balls in his truck. Sorry. I wish my dick was that big. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's all good.
if it was, you'd be tripping over it.
Back in my day, they had gun racks on a truck. Guns on them.
Hey, if your gun rack has a gun rack on it, you might be from Lafayette.
Gotta get 4
Oh,
guns.
he's got to go by again.
Yep, there he goes.
We're all really impressed down here.
Yeah.
Oh God, I don't think my masculinity could compare to that. Ugh.
But my bad. Sorry, I couldn't. I just couldn't.
mean-
I was hearing him and I was like, oh god, this prick's interrupting. Anyways. go
Oh,
ahead.
dude, it's
Why do you think I wear a mask and makeup? I don't want anybody to know who I really look like. I'm way prettier now than without this
Trust me,
mask
I've seen him.
No.
You're not missing anything.
No.
on. Yeah, you're not. I'm like Ugly Bob from South Park. Oh God, Ugly Bob, you gotta wear the paper bag on your face.
All right. We gotta focus. Focus. Sorry. Go back to what you were saying.
Okay. See, backtrack a little bit here. So, when Borg wanted to see the lyrics, I went ahead and I finished them up and I sent them to him. And almost immediately he's like, "All right, dude, come Thursday, try it out." And I was so nervous. I came in. These guys were super cool. They were trying to make it easier for me. I was so hard on myself, but I got through it. Didn't know what to expect in the end, and they're like, "Hey, man." It was Grim was like, do you want the gig? You know, this is serious. You know, if you seriously want in, you're our guy. So it was just cool. You know, it kind of started off a little bit as a fan, I think, of Death at Dawn before I came in as a vocalist.
What's funny is I actually have heard we had the Blends on here as our first band we brought in to do this. And they were talking highly of you guys because, I guess, they had played a show with you just recently. You know, with the
Fun show.
And
Great
They
dudes.
were speaking extremely highly of you, and like all of you guys in general. But was just like how nice you guys were and how like accepting you were. You know, because and that's also something we kind of talked about last week. But is that I think it's because we all kind of came from this era of musicians around here where it was all about helping each other out. It didn't matter what kind of music you were in.
Well,
I mean,
pretty open-minded musically, too.
Yeah, I mean, we would. I mean, sometimes obviously we'd poke fun at other bands for fun and whatever, but you know, it was most of the time it was never mean-spirited. It was all just in fun, and they would do it right back at us.
Yeah,
And so so like exactly, and it's that, you know, playful competition, you know, where it's like, you know, you're not really competing with each other, but you kind of are just for fun, you know, but because of that, like, I feel like all of us in this kind of generation of musicians in this area, we were in that era around here when that's what we all did. We all played shows with each other. Didn't matter what kind of music we were doing. We would play. You'd have shows where you had an acoustic act opening it up, and then the last band would be like some grindcore band, and then in the middle you might have a punk band.
Yeah.
Like, and everybody was cool with it. Like, nobody gave anybody any shit for it. Like, you know, it was a lot more open. So like, hearing like, I know that was one of the things they were talking about as far as with them being on the bill with you guys, because, you know, they're more of kind of like the experimental indie noise rock kind of a band.
Man, they were great too.
Yeah, they
Oh,
were.
they're great.
They're awesome.
I mean, they were a lot of fun to have in here. I mean, we
Really nice
we sat
guys.
down and talked with them for almost 2 fucking hours that night. So I mean,
Yeah,
it was,
Blends, we got to do another show.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I think what's cool about doing shows with the Blends is, even though, you know, we're metal, but I feel like maybe it's because I'm in the band, but I feel like we're a little alternative, and I feel like the Blends are pretty alternative, so I think it kind of makes it work.
yeah. And you're both, the thing that I think also is the crossover is that you both are creative types. You're not just doing what is the norm or what is going to sell
that's
or
what we
what's going to...
respect,
Yeah, you both are kind of blazing your own paths. You're doing your own things. I mean, yes, there's inspirations. Obviously, you know, they were talking about some of their inspirations. You guys have talked about some of yours. But you're still kind of blazing your own path in this kind of sea of mediocrity and shit
That's
around here with a lot of the
respectable,
bands.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
Super respectable.
And I feel like that's, I mean, a lot of the bands that I've become connected to over the last couple of years, in particular around here and even beyond, honestly, you know, we've, like in Eros, and, you know, even Benny can talk, you know, like with Controvert and stuff, like, that we've been lucky to start finding a community again of like-minded people like this. And I feel like this scene is starting to revive itself again.
I agree.
Like, for years it just kind of died, and now it seems like it's starting to, like,
That's what we
this
want.
community is starting to come up again. And it is, honestly, I have to hand it to, you know, to Bennett and the scene out there. And
He's doing an amazing job out there.
that, to me, that was the kind of kick in the pants to get me back into doing it again, was because of seeing what he was doing and the dedication that he had to it, and this kind of family he was creating, and was so extremely open to us, you know, going all the way out there, you know, the Converse area, like, it's,
Well, I mean, if it tells you anything, I mean, we just did a show. I guess this isn't going to be until November, so it was October 23rd. It was Frank Fest. It was on a fucking Wednesday.
yeah, we did Frank Fest last year.
Yeah, it was a fucking Wednesday, and I told him he was crazy for having a show on a Wednesday, and I actually ended up having to bite my tongue and tell him I was wrong because there was almost 100 kids there.
Yeah.
And, like, it was ridiculous. I mean, it
And
helped
anybody
that
who's
the
ever
lineup-
been out to Bennett's, like, it's
yeah, like,
in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, so like
it's-
weekend shows like do all right because you know it's a weekend, but like a weekday show, unless it's like during a holiday, it's like that doesn't happen. So like I mean the lineup really helped, but other than that, like just seeing people going to shows in general, like even like going like driving by the spot and stuff when they have shows, like some of their nights they have quite a few people there.
Yeah.
That's a
And,
cool
like-
place. That was our first show.
Yeah,
The
Brett,
spot was great.
Room's
for us.
full.
Yeah.
Brad,
I have not
Brad is
played
totally
there yet.
helping.
January.
Yeah, January 7th.
But you know, it kind of slipped my mind. But you know, your guys, Controvert's bass player actually played and cut him down with us. He's our guitar player.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when we
Yes.
split up, Alec went to
Yeah.
Controvert, and you know Tim went with us, and then we all, you know, still talk together. I don't
Yeah.
know why that freaking slipped my mind. But, you know, we're all pretty much
We,
connected.
we were joking about
lot of
this with
connections,
with the blends. Actually, we were joking about how like a lot of these bands around here, we're all kind of like band sluts with each other. We've all kind of we're all inbred. We've all kind of like
We
slept
played with each
musically.
other so many times in so many different ways in so many different
We're,
settings.
we're like band Eskimo brothers.
And
Yeah.
we did music. And we played music.
It's kind of reminiscent of the early Seattle scene, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very
They were
much
all
so.
kind of like that out there.
I mean, like, if you think about it, you know, right now what we're doing, it's kind of like a reblossoming of what was going on in the 90s when Nirvana came out. And, you know, because...
We're trying. I feel like there is this effort that's going on right now in Indiana and even outside of Indiana, but I'm primarily speaking of Indiana because that's where we're all based.
Yeah.
And that there is this effort that I'm glad to see of trying to start another viable music scene again. There have been before. I mean, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, a lot of the bands that most people would know that came from here didn't make a name for themselves here. They left, you know, went to LA or New York or whatever, and made a name for themselves that way.
But really.
You know, like, we're talking about, you know, Guns N' Roses and Blind Melon, and you know, like you have famous people who've come from this area but didn't necessarily make it here, and never really came back either. And
although I do hear Izzy Stradlin makes appearances.
yeah, he does from time to time.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Who came from Indiana? Michael Jackson.
But the funny thing is that the Jacksons try to like not talk about their life
They
in
don't-
Gary as much as possible.
they
Yeah.
don't
How
say
many
that.
Jacksons were buried underneath the house? Zach? How many Jacksons were buried? Tito, go dig another hole.
No, it was Jermaine. Get
Oh
the
wait,
shovel.
Jermaine. Yeah, Tito can do it. Is Latoya even useful? I mean, should we?
This is okay. I am gonna make a shout out for this one. This is to a podcast that I love religiously.
Yeah, he got me on that too.
Is if you guys want to, like, it's two guys out of the Phoenix area that do a podcast called Crime and Sports, and they also have another one called Small Town Murder. But Crime and Sports this last week, which of course by the time people see this is going to be like a month previously,
Yeah.
there was a bit about the Jacksons, and that's what he was making a reference to.
Oh, French lick my asshole. That was like caught me off guard about the whole fucking podcast. French lick my asshole. I was like, what?
Now let's not get too far off track here.
But
I'll get as far off track as I want to.
I mean, if that's how you want to live your life, do it. But in this setting, some
some people I've heard have jobs that they have to go to
Yes,
early in
I
the
mean-
morning.
yeah, well, I'm on vacation.
Larry?
Yeah.
He's on vacation.
Also, I have chicken wings waiting for me at home.
Oh shit!
No, he said that wrong.
So
he said
hungry.
we've got chicken wings. here.
of course
Honey
he
barbecue,
did.
bitches. Ain't got licking chicken.
Oh shit!
Oh god.
So we've got you guys got some stuff coming up here soon. You're shooting for having, you know, an album or at least an EP or something after the first of the year. Is that what you're shooting for?
We're wanting to record it during winter.
Okay.
We're gonna call it winter solstice.
There you go.
No, we're not. That's terrible. No, we don't know what it's gonna call, but we definitely have plans to like start recording it during the winter. That way we have something new for the first of the
that's
year.
what we've talked about. Yeah.
Hopefully, shooting for springtime to do a maybe a CD release party with some of the better known names around Lafayette.
Awesome. That'd be great. Like, anytime that, like, you know, we can get more shows somewhere for these bands and these artists to go play. Like we were talking with our guest last week about, he was talking about how there was a time when, he was playing every weekend, and then he's just like, he's like, I could tell that the scene's kind of gone to shit. He's like, because for the last, 3 years, nobody has asked me to do anything. It's like for 3 years previous to that, he was playing every weekend, all the time, playing out of state, all this stuff, and then just for the last 3 years, nothing. Nobody's asked him to do anything.
I blame cell phones.
And so we definitely put the call out. We were like, fucking book this guy. Like, get him in there.
Yeah.
Like, he can do acoustic stuff by himself. He's got people who are willing to play with him to back him up if you want, like, a more of a band setting. It's the same thing, like, with you guys. It's like, book these guys. Put them somewhere. Like, that's what we want.
One guy you guys should look into booking, or at least seeing if he's interested, Efrons.
Okay.
He is talented. He does all the music himself, and then he'll play guitar and sing to the music that he's wrote himself.
Nice.
I think
he's a one-man
far
band.
away.
Yeah, I think he may have been.
but
We've got some bands, honestly, we've got some, and we haven't announced necessarily yet, but we have some in the lineup that are coming a significant distance. I mean, I've got one in the works that's coming from Nashville. So, I mean, that wants to come from Nashville. We haven't set an official date or anything yet. But, so this is something that's reaching out even more than just here. I mean, obviously, our focus is primarily here because we want to help all of our brothers out, and sisters, out with getting a chance to be seen somewhere, But of course, we're open to people from out of state and stuff too. It's a big community. We want to create this big community for everybody.
Yeah, did you guys see where Vital Remains is coming through Lafayette?
I heard something about that.
I'm pretty excited about it. So that's going to be coming up. I'm definitely going to go to that show. So I think that's coming up here.
I do have a question though, of your guys' opinions on this one. And I know we're probably getting close on time. I don't know what we're running in.
We're about an hour and 2 minutes in.
Well, okay, so we got a little bit of time about this one. But we kind of touched on this, I think, on other podcasts, but not much. But I will set the tone here, but I'm going to back off because otherwise I will go on a fucking soapbox rant for an hour.
Yeah, it's the Dickman curse. Thanks, Dad.
But
and a small penis.
What are you guys' thoughts about what's happening
it's okay.
with the Lafayette Theater now switching hands and becoming owned and run by the city of Lafayette's government?
No, that's terrible. I think it's terrible because honestly, what does the government actually know what we want? What does the government know about any kind of music?
They're just gonna read the magazines and the commercials and bring whatever will bring money in. Basically.
Yeah, let's have
it's a money-making machine now.
Let's have rappers that have fallen off the map completely, like Nelly and DMX. I love DMX, but they ain't doing nothing right now.
Well, here was my big, and I'm gonna keep this as short as possible. I swear that. My big thing that I was upset with is any time that you get a governmental agency controlling anything having to do with the arts, censorship comes in immediately.
Yeah.
And because they cannot associate themselves with anything that's not family friendly or middle of the road or anything like that. So the moment I heard that they were buying the place, they were taking it over, and then after the first of the year they were going to be doing all the booking and stuff, I was like, well, fuck it. We just lost another venue.
Yep, basically the Chinese government is taking over.
And it's like, because they're not ever going to book, do you think they're ever going to book an even slightly edgy comedian to come talk in there? Or a slightly edgy band? Or, it's all going to be the same middle-of-the-road bullshit that they already put through, all the other mid-sized venues that they already have in town. It's just another one. And it's like, I feel like...
Me and Larry have played there a few times, and it's a great place to play.
Oh, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
What they did with that place was amazing.
The sound's really good, too.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a nice stage. It's a great setup. That's why it pisses me off so much that, bands like us are now no longer going to have the opportunity to play in a place like that. Because you think they're going to bring us in there?
You talking about Lafayette Music Theater?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw that Lafayette just took over ownership of
After
that.
the first of the year, they will be in full control.
Yeah, think about this.
So
Look what they've done to Christmas. Look what Lafayette's done to Christmas. You can't have certain this, you can't have this, you can't, Christmas trees are offensive. You have to say Happy Holidays. You know, you can't say Merry Christmas to people anymore.
That's completely different.
No,
now you're barking. Now you're going down a different road altogether.
No, I'm not.
That's totally different.
It's not the same. It's not totally different because the government's the one that runs that
It's
stuff.
censorship.
It's censorship. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's censorship.
All right.
It does
Because,
kind of blend together.
Christmas is just a small, minuscule example because once they take over, you know, if something offends somebody that's so minuscule, they're going to be like, oh, well, we have to take that out because we're going to offend the small amount of people that are out there.
That was my number one concern with
when
when that news hit that was what was going to happen. I immediately was like, this is the worst possible fucking thing that could happen.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
because,
not saying that the people running it before were that great either, but
no, but they were a lot more open to other things.
Oh, yeah.
Granted, I understand. Trust me, I've helped run a small venue before. I have talked to a lot of venue owners and people who run venues.
Now
it is expensive.
It is,
and you have to be able to think, you know, if I'm going to keep the doors open, I have to make this much money just to keep the doors open because of whatever. So you can't obviously just be booking all these no talent, or not necessarily no talent, but these small shows where nobody's going to show up.
Yeah.
You know, because then you can't even afford to pay the electric bill for the night. I get that. But what I don't like is having a governmental agency come in, take over anything having to do with the arts. Because immediately it brings in censorship.
Oh, of course.
Because the city cannot have their name connected to it. You have, say, I mean, even, you know, if you bring in, you know, trying to think of something, like you would never be able to have, like, even somebody well, maybe only because of name, but somebody to the caliber of even like Dave Chappelle. Not that he would ever play here, but
Yeah, right.
But because of the things that he says. And what would get into the news immediately about that, the city would not take the risk to bring somebody like that here. They wouldn't do it.
Oh, hey, my phone.
Well, hopefully that didn't just smash. That
sure.
sounded like it.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah, it sounded like a belly flopper there.
Did it crack it?
Sure did.
Ooh, you're lucky, boy. That sounded like it cracked.
Yeah, it did.
I think my screen cracked more, but all for the sake of being able to see you. So.
But anyways, like, yeah, like I immediately, I even online, I went on a fucking rant and like wrote these like 3 or 4 paragraphs
I read that.
about that because I was just like, this is bullshit. Like, I understand, like, on the one hand, I'm kind of split because on the one hand, the kind of person who's into history and architectural preservation side of me is like, okay, at least now we don't have to worry about necessarily being torn down or something, although, do we? Yeah, you know, downtown needs more parking. But the idea is that it's like, oh, you know, when you get a governmental agency controlling something like that, maybe they can be able to survive, like save the building and keep it around for longer. They're not necessarily looking to get rid of it. But, like, I don't like the idea of that. And to me, it was just another... It was just the city yet again stepping in on something that they had no business being involved in. Like, yes, they stepped in and saved a building that was of historical significance in town. Cool. But at what cost?
They just want a money machine.
Yeah.
So,
And when it isn't a money machine, are they going to keep it, or are they going to turn it into a parking lot?
well, let me ask you this. You know, if they book, like, a well-known comedian or, like, a well-known band, do you think they're going to have any local artists come to open up for them? No.
And the local artists that they will have, I'm not speaking ill of any of these guys, because there's some of them that I know personally and know very well, that are the more mainstream, middle-of-the-road guys that are extremely talented, but, you know, it's like you're seeing these same people every time coming up to these kind of events, where it's like, you know, there is a lot more talent in this area if you guys would be willing to bring somebody else in. And you kind of see the same kind of names always popping up as headline or like openers for these, for these bands.
One of the reasons why I don't book in Lafayette anymore.
A lot of people don't.
It's just a pain in the ass. It's way more work and money and all this shit than it's even worth. Like Carnegie Hall or whatever, that other one down on Main Street.
Oh God, pay to play.
Basically, I mean, but I know.
Yeah, we went on a rant about that last week too.
I know Penny.
Pay to play. Yeah, pay to play is bullshit.
The guy that books there now, his system, it seems like it's a pay to play, but it's really not. See, I know him personally and plan on working with him in the future because he has that connect with Carnegie Hall. But he did straight up tell me that it's like $600 just to open the door for a show because he has to pay the sound guy.
Yeah.
He has to pay security. He has to pay all that. But it's pay to play because he gives you tickets, but he gives you half of whatever the ticket is. So if he's selling it for $15, you're getting $7.50 a pop, and then you give him $7.50. So like you are kind of paying to play, but you're not because you're not having to put money down to get the tickets. So it's
that
different.
can be fine in a local setting when you're bringing, like if you have a local band who's bringing in, like we were talking about last week, was so many of these situations where you try to get on a promoter from out of state contacts you and is like, hey, we want you to get on this show, but we want you to sell this many tickets. And then if you don't, I think I know exactly where you're going with this because we were talking with him about this last time.
Yep.
And he was just like, fuck you, we're not doing it. Because it's like, you're the promoter. Who are we going to sell it to? We don't have a fan base there. You contacted us. You wanted us to come out and do this.
And that happens a lot more.
And it's like, but you're then expecting
about.
us to pay you for it? Like, it's like, well, how many tickets did you sell? Well, we didn't sell any. Well, then you owe us like $115 to play, and we might be able to give you $30 for gas. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's a 4-hour drive. I ain't doing that. Like, no. Like,
it's not a smart idea.
You invited me. Why do you want me to pay you? Like,
a specific venue in Indy did that to us a while back, if you guys remember.
Well, it's more like we were looking into doing this show, but when we read the fine print, we were like, "Oh, we gotta sell tickets."
Oh no! I was talking about us.
Oh.
Well, it was a promoter down there. It wasn't the venue.
That was
it was a specific promoter. The venue didn't have anything to do with it.
You sell this many tickets, you can play.
Which I think technically we still owe him that tab, but let's not talk about that.
Well, he can suck it because.
Which is funny because like he's actually somebody that I've talked to and interacted with since then. I just had no idea, but I guess that was a Nathan thing because he was the one that set all that up and dealt with him. So
it definitely was.
Yeah, I was just like, it's out of my hands. I'm not doing it.
That's why we told him, we're like, dude, you handle this because you're the one that set it up.
Well, and I don't even think we ended up playing that show. I think it was
we didn't.
We got tickets and then we sold some and then we ended up not being able to give him the ticket money. Is what it was.
Nathan,
it wasn't even a problem.
I think one of our members didn't sell the tickets, and we sold all of ours, and we couldn't play because of it.
Yeah, I think I might have sold a couple of them.
Because I sold my 6.
Yeah, but that's one of those things that I've run into over the years in general with venues is that whole pay to play thing, and like in certain situations I can see where it would kind of make sense, but you can't do that. Like, I don't know if I've talked about this in the podcast before, but back in, was this ACDN when we did this? It was. Because it was in the early days of when Benny and I were in ACDN together. And we had a show at the Emerson with
it was a whole bunch of
California Caller and several other bands.
There was like 3 or 4
and
other
we
bands.
were supposed to go down there, and there was a band. It was a band from out of state that got a hold of us to have us come on this bill, and they were supposed to be headlining and whatever. So apparently they thought that because we're Indiana bands, like we're gonna bring in this Indiana crowd, and it's like, but they booked bands from like the Lafayette area, Muncie area.
Well, yeah, basically what happened is those bands that were coming backed out and end up not coming.
Well, one of them like had a legit problem. Like,
but there was 2 of them because there was only I am coming down to only being the bands from Lafayette that were going to be able to play, and they canceled it.
Yeah, well, and I talked to the guy at the time who was running the Emerson Theater at the time, and he made perfect sense. He's just like, I can't put on this show. Like, literally, there was no one there. No one, except for the bands. Yeah. Not a single person showed up. Because, we didn't have necessarily a big fan base in Indianapolis. There were some people in Indy that we were friends with.
Plus, I'm also pretty positive that Sparta was playing down at the Egyptian.
Yeah, I think so, too.
So,
But still, it was a matter of, like, there was no one. And he's like, I can't just let you guys get up there and basically make it a glorified practice. Like, I can't afford that.
Because at that point, like, the light bill and
Oh,
the
yeah, and he rattled
soundboard
off. Like,
and-
he told me, he's like, the lights alone cost me this. Turning on that PA cost me this. You know, we can't afford
And
it.
since we didn't have enough
Yeah.
pre-sales sold there, that's basically what he was saying.
Yeah.
Was like, if you guys would have been able to sell more pre-sales and I would have had the cash to afford it, we would have let you continue. But
Yeah.
since you
And
only
we
have
completely
two
understood. And what
bands-
actually made it better because we all just turned around, drove our asses back up here, and then played a badass house show.
Purple Nipple.
So, like, it became
great.
I remember that.
Yeah,
it
that's
became
great.
a much better night anyways.
It was.
But we all still lost money on gas driving all the way down there and then driving all the way back for nothing.
Yeah, it sucks.
So,
I
I
almost
mean-
happened with King's Gambit when I was with them. When we opened for the number 12, I was like so worried because I'd had it happen there before, and then like there were supposed to be 5 bands and it dropped to just 2,
Ooh.
and it was like, is number 12 worth it? Is it good enough? And it's like it was. I mean, they were still like half the. It was like half packed, and it was just like, well, we're still gonna do it. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, okay, whew. You know, this is great, but. Yeah, no, the Emerson was really bad towards the end of things. I mean, I feel like since they've changed to center stage or whatever they're...
It's
Yeah,
no,
they
it's
closed-
Citadel
Citadel
now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not the
Oh,
other
it's
C.
Citadel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I thought
The
Emerson
guy,
closed
the people
down.
that were running it basically closed down the Emerson. We talked about this last week,
Yeah.
but they closed down the Emerson and then they relocated everything over to the Citadel.
And the only reason why you know that is because if you go on their Facebook and look under their like email and stuff, it's still
Yeah,
Emerson.
and of course I know some of the people that are.
Yeah,
connected
it's
to it,
still
so,
the
yeah.
same people that were like towards the end of the Emerson. They just got rid of it and rebranded to
Yeah.
what they are
And
now.
I mean, the place that they have now is a bigger place.
Well, yeah, and as far as I know, they have 2 rooms instead of just 1. So they have like their big.
It's a much better setup. I
haven't
mean,
been
it's not
there
as
yet.
high of the ceilings aren't as high and stuff, but
But you also have like the Hoosier Dome, which is
very misleading by name.
yeah.
but
It well, I mean, yeah, it's 'cause the old Hoosier Dome, like got tore down.
It's
or
an
whatever.
homage to the original Hoosier Dome that was downtown Indy.
But it's probably one of my favorite. And then another a venue that just popped up not that long ago that's really badass that everybody should check out is Healer.
dude, I have heard
Healer
all
is
sorts of good stuff about that
Fucking
place.
phenomenal. The sound guys, he's all right. He's not terrible. The sound's good,
Mm-hmm.
but like you'll walk in and there's just like booths of like random art.
Oh yeah,
And like
I've seen
it's all
pictures
the
from there.
one
It's
guy.
a beautiful
like
place.
the guy that opened the place is the one that's done all the work, and it's beautiful in there. And like the stage is really good. There's a lot of space. Plus there's like a bar in the back, but it's all ages. And like that place is probably one of my favorite venues I've seen in a long ass time. Like next to like the Skylight.
I've had
and
people
stuff.
over the years ask me if I'd be interested in being a part of a venue getting started up here, and I've told them no, because I've been through it before.
No,
and
don't hit
and-
him up, but hit me up because I'm totally down.
Yeah, I mean, I can give some advice from my own personal experience of having been involved with a venue in this town, but I really don't want that headache again or the disappointment of it. Like it was a
I feel like
massive heartbreak.
That situation was a lot of like due to a lot of outside drama though. Like
Yeah.
of
Oh, definitely.
feuds between the people that were doing it at the time. I think now.
Well, it wasn't from anybody who was involved in it. It was from some people who weren't involved in it and were upset that they weren't involved in it.
yeah.
That's ultimately what it came down to. That decided to fuck it all up. But anyways, we're getting off topic.
Yeah, we're getting way. way
Yeah.
off.
Anyways, I was trying to wrap this shit up a while ago.
Yeah, you should probably do that.
We need to get you guys out of here.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
awesome having you guys on. Like, we definitely want to have you guys back at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks for having
We'd
us.
definitely like to come back out.
Yeah. And hopefully, I mean, we're still a work in progress. We're still trying to add more to the show, add more to our setup in here,
And when we come back, we'll probably have new masks and makeup and costumes and shit.
Nice.
Like to keep it fresh.
New
Shoot
songs.
your best.
Yeah, and thanks guys for helping new bands like us get started and get us out there.
Yeah,
It's
it's awesome.
it's a passion for us, and I know like it's a little weird this time around because Tyler's normally out here doing this with
Yeah.
me, and he unfortunately had some other things he had to take care of, and he couldn't be out here to do this. So we're kind of doing this. Benny and I are doing this together.
Yes.
But Tyler and I, when we came up with the idea of doing this, like we've been talking about it for a while. Like we really wanted to give, like I said, a place for our friends to like get out and do these things, because we've developed these kind of abilities, these talents of recording and doing all this stuff like over the years of just trial and error and learning how to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like, let's take this and let's use this in a way that can help the whole community and not, give everybody a chance. Like, and that's what we want. Like, we want more bands like you guys on here. We want more artists in here, like, and just to keep growing and, giving a community for everybody. Where there's no hatred between bands, really. There's no, it's just like, I want that old school community again, like we used to have 10, 15 years ago around.
Yeah.
It's time.
It's been a long past time for that.
It's been a long time coming.
But anyways, thank you guys again for coming on and weathering through all the technical difficulties and the bullshit and all that stuff we had to deal with.
Hey, at least
today,
you didn't have to come back tomorrow.
Hey, yeah, it's been a great time, guys. Great time.
And I want to thank Benny for, yet again helping run cameras and stuff. And
It's
being
hard to
our
look
guy
this pretty every day.
Well, see, I am like the unofficial like third party to
I was
this.
to say wheel. Yeah.
All the grunt work,
Oh, so
moving
he's the
shit
fluffer,
around.
huh?
Oh, you flops.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy
That
helping
chin strap's nice and good for him.
the music scene. I mean, obviously, I've been in it just as long as most of the people here, so
There's a reason we hear
it's
mask over our
it's
face.
nice to be able to give back, and be able to be on the other side of things as well sometimes.
Yeah.
So I will
Yeah.
be around for most of these, if not all of them.
Yeah.
So
And, we at some point will probably put out somewhere, when we're looking for some more people to help volunteer and things. Because we definitely, we found as we started doing this that it is an awful lot for two guys to do.
Yeah,
Sure
so,
it is.
I mean, we do everything we can with just the two of us. And then, luckily enough, we've gotten Benny coming in and helping us out now. Like, it has helped us immensely.
a fourth person would be nice.
Yes, it would be.
I mean, hell, we've been here almost 7.5 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In all, even though most people are only going to see, the hour and 20 minutes of the podcast
Snip.
and the songs.
Well, I mean, as of right now, we're at
Yeah.
an hour and 20
This stuff
minutes,
takes
so.
a lot of work, people.
It
Appreciate it.
It's great.
takes a lot of work. Some of us have been here since 2:00 this afternoon.
Yeah,
it
and,
is
and of
now.
course, like Finney was only able to do so much because he has the kids today. So I mean, it is what it is. I think we did good.
Yeah,
We definitely appreciate you guys coming out and doing this,
Definitely.
so
I appreciate you having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
and we can't
Great
wait to
time.
see you guys, do more. And next time you come in, have an album and
Yeah,
You
we'll have
know.
an album and we'll be promoting that shit.
fuck yeah, like I can't wait to see what comes of that. But thanks again, guys, for coming on.
Thank you, Zach.
This has
Thanks,
been
Ben.
Yep.
This has been the Band Shop Podcast, guys. You can check us out on most streaming platforms, and there's a Patreon and all that shit, which will be in the descriptions and all that kind of stuff. But thanks again to Death at Dawn.
Damn it, Nick!
For coming on. We will see you guys next time.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks
Cheers.
for having us. Look us up on Facebook.